Okay, hello. Welcome to Advanced Quantitative Research Methods. Okay, as we start, let me clarify something. Right now, there is only one student enrolled in this course. So if that is still the case, hi Vika, hi, it's nice to see you again or have you in the course. Right now, you are the only student enrolled in this course. However, I am recording this as with the possibility that there could be other students enrolling later. Right now, even one of the reasons this video is going to be kind of short is because I actually spent a good deal of today trying to get final word as to whether this course was even going to happen, which I'm sure they never gave me any indication that the answer was definitely no, because everybody knew that it's a required course. So even if only one student is enrolled, that student needs this course. But I just couldn't get final word on how that was going to work, and couldn't get final word that that was definitely what was happening. As it is, this is being listed as a special instruction course as opposed to a standard course, but that only applies to me. That only applies to what category it's under for me as a professor. For you as a student, it doesn't matter. You get full credit, you get all that stuff. However, and you and I will talk about this if it becomes relevant, it does open up the possibility that if no other students register or just one, if it's under 3, we can be more flexible about when we meet. So if for some reason this time frame doesn't work, we could see if we could find some other mutually agreeable time. But I can't do that for at least the first week, because we have to keep it as is, what's in the syllabus, in case other students enroll. So if it ends up that this course becomes only one student or possibly even 2, we could, as time goes on, be a bit more flexible if there's any reason to look for an alternative time to do what we have now. But we can talk about that later. Right now, there's only one student enrolled in this course, but let me use this video lecture as sort of an introduction to, and what I meant before about all the stuff I had to go through today. It's just that I'm recording this lecture much later than I typically would have. I want to get it on, I want to get it posted so it is there for tomorrow morning. So let me just tell you a little bit about the course. It's advanced quantitative research, and it is taking the material that's covered in the introduction to quantitative and qualitative and going a step further with quantitative design. Now, right now, I know the only student in this course is focusing her dissertation on a qualitative research design. So my plan is right now, if that continues to be the case, my plan is to focus the course more on how to interpret quantitative research so that you can be a good clinical consumer of the quantitative research that's out there, even if you aren't conducting quantitative. So we'll focus on both how to conduct quantitative research and how to interpret quantitative. That's the purpose of this course, is to learn enough about how quantitative research works so as to be able to conduct quantitative research and also interpret quantitative research. I tend to give more focus on interpreting quantitative research just because if you know how to interpret quantitative research, you can also use that information to conduct quantitative research. And I think that is essential for any clinical professional. Not every clinical professional conducts quantitative research, but every clinical professional should know how to read, interpret, and make use of quantitative research and qualitative research. So let me talk a little bit about what are the issues we will discuss in here. Quantitative research boils down to statistics. That's what quantitative research is. The difference between quantitative research and qualitative research is quantitative research makes use of statistics, makes use of numbers. And so in order to understand quantitative research, in order to make use of quantitative research, you need to understand statistics. You need to know how to not only collect data, how to interpret data, but also how to understand and interpret statistics. And so we're going to focus a lot in here on that. I am going to assume here that you have a basic understanding of the scientific method. The scientific method applies much more strongly to quantitative research compared to qualitative research. The quantitative the quantitative method is largely connected to the scientific method. And the scientific method involves identifying a research question based on your review of previous research and identifying where additional gaps, where there are research gaps. One of the biggest things about research in general, but certainly about quantitative research, is this need for studies to add to the previous body of research literature. So all studies are expected to advance an understanding of a topic, of a construct. So you identify a research question based on your understanding of where the research stands at the present time. So you identify gaps, you identify where there are questions that haven't been asked, or questions that haven't fully been answered. That's your first step with quantitative research. The second step is, after doing a thorough review of the research to identify where the research gaps are, you then formulate hypotheses. You use a thorough review of the previous research to formulate educated guesses about what you think the outcome of your research will show. Okay, so what you do first with the scientific method is, as I said, you review the literature to identify research gaps. And then the next thing you do is you formulate educated guesses, otherwise known as hypotheses, about what you think the outcome is going to be of your study. And then you go about collecting, then you formulate a plan. And the plan will, in quantitative methods, will involve some sort of way of objectively measuring the variables that you are including. And in a research study, that will include an independent variable or it will include independent variables or independent variable, singular or plural, and dependent variables. And the way to understand that is, what you are studying is what sort of outcome you get in the dependent variable based on what happens with the independent variable. So the dependent variable is being studied in terms of how it is dependent on what happens with the independent variable. Okay, so you will formulate ways of measuring your variables. And in quantitative research, that means using some sort of method where there are quantities, where there are numbers. Although I emphasize statistics when I talk about quantitative, it's important to keep in mind that the word quantitative refers specifically to numbers. You are using some way to numerically measure the variables that you're looking to study. So the numbers may come across as frequency counts, how often something happens. The numbers may be in terms of scores on an instrument like the Beck depression inventory, or the MMPI 3, or something that measures something. There are numbers there. It may even be that in a quantitative study, you may be studying things like race or gender, and you may need to assign numbers to different genders or different racial groups. Even there, you use numbers to represent the different groups, even though the numbers themselves aren't specific quantities. You still use the numbers as a way of running your statistical test. So you figure out what methods, once you have identified your topic, once you've reviewed the literature, once you have formulated your hypotheses, you then find ways of measuring your data. You then go about collecting data, and you will do that by studying samples of people, and you will try to get samples that mirror the population. The population is the whole group, the group as a whole that you're hoping to the group as a whole that you are hoping to learn something about, and you learn something about that population. You can't study everybody in the population. You learn about that population by studying a representation or a sample of the population. That is where, that is what you do next, is you create a sample that is as close as possible to representing your population, and you will gather data from that sample. Once you have gathered data from that sample, you then will analyze your data by using statistics, and the statistics will tell you whether the variables that you are looking at are significantly related, whether there is some reason to think that there is a noteworthy relationship between the variables that you are studying. And then what you will do, you will interpret those results by determining how much what you found in the sample tells you about what you learn about the sample, what that tells you about the population. As we go along this course, we'll be studying those steps in more detail. We will be talking about different types of statistics. Okay, what I would like you to give some thought, it's actually going to be the discussion topic, is I would like you to, since this class is going to be limited to, there may just be one student there, but it's probably going to be very, very small, even if someone else signs up. I would like you to, in the discussion, give some serious thought to what you would like to leave this course having learned. Since there's more variability in what I cover, since it's probably going to be a very small group, I would like to know what specifically you would want to gather from this course. So as this lecture is rather short, I would like you to give that some thought and post that in the discussion board so I can read it before we meet on Thursday night. And that will be at 4:30 your time in California, 7:30 my time in Pennsylvania. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, and please make sure to post that to the discussion board. I'll see you on Thursday.